So, all right, I got a question for you, Tony. So we have our top three receivers and top three running backs who are highly valued but could underperform in 2020. And you can take NFL perspective or you can take fantasy football perspective, but a couple of receivers and a couple of running backs who you think are going to underperform this season.
I would start with somebody else.
All right, Jamar, you got a couple you think top three running back receivers underperformers. It doesn't have to be three. If you got one or two
performers, just looking at this list, I don't see Nick Chubb doing the same thing he did last year. I feel like eventually they're going to work Kareem Hunt into this show. With that being said, they'll take some yards from that man.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see him being, at least from a fantasy standpoint, him being as valuable as he was last year. But that's just
right. It's a good one.
This list, Chris Carson's coming off an injury, right?
Yeah.
From last year, Chris Carson's another one. He's still pretty high on this list, but seeing how he's going to bounce back next year. I almost want to say Dalvin too. I really like Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook had a great year. Prior to getting hurt, I feel like he's such a big question mark that it's like he could drop off as well. So
yeah,
those are my three.
Okay. Kyle, you got a couple of receivers or running backs you think might fall back a little bit?
Yeah, if you're gonna look at a fantasy perspective, which I think, you could do anything, but so for me, I think that Derrick Henry playoff shine is going to come off a little bit. It's going to be very hard to accumulate touches and stats like that for a whole season. So I think you're probably going to see him overdrafted a lot. As a top 5 running back when he should probably be top 10. Because he does have a good role. But so I think that's probably one. Austin Eckler,
big
as
one.
more of a fantasy, I think he's going to continue the same role. But
Yes.
you're probably going to see him overdrafted and overvalued, and he's going to underperform. He's probably still going to have a very good fantasy value, but where you get him is probably going to be too high.
Yeah, he's going in the second round in early drafts, and it's no disrespect to him, but to try to have the efficiency that he had, it's the same reason that Alvin Kamara was not quite as great as he was. He finished as a top 12 guy, but because you have otherworldly efficiency, if that goes down to earth, then you just become, instead of upper echelon, historic, you become a quality football player.
Right. And the third running back I'll say is McCaffrey. As big a McCaffrey fan as there is, I just don't think that, one, they're going to give him as many touches. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think Matt Rule understands that he's a team builder here, so he's going to be able to build this team for the future. In the future, shouldn't rely on giving Christian McCaffrey, in a season when you're not going to be good, 400 touches.
Right.
So you're going to see his touches cut back, and they're probably going to utilize some more running back touches that way. So he's going to be the number one running back drafted. And I guess a fall-off would be not ending up as the number one fantasy running back.
Which hasn't happened in
See, it just
years,
doesn't
since
happen,
LaDainian Tomlinson or something like that.
Right.
That somebody started and finished number one. The couple that I had was number one, Leonard Fournette. He had a really great season. He had a pretty typical rushing season. He broke 1,000 yards. Only had 3 touchdowns, which was really, really weird, being a guy who was like more of a pounder. So I think he should see
that
positive.
offense is screwed up.
Yeah,
they don't do a good job of getting him the ball in those situations.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he should see positive regression, but who knows? Like you said, it's not ideal. I think I'm pretty sure Jay Gruden is the offensive coordinator there now, and he had 76 catches last year. Like, it was a career high, and Jay Gruden has always used a pass catching running back, as a second back. So I don't see the path to him having that same, high touch floor that he had this past year. So unless his touchdowns, dramatically increase, like I think there's a natural way back. I think Nick Chubb was a good one on your part. The one caveat I do think is that as much as Kareem Hunt might be used more, he had a lot of slot touches last year, and without having, and clearly they have Hooper now, and they're gonna run more 2 tight end sets, but I don't know how much that he eats into his production. So there may be a chance that maybe he can escape it if he can, score a few more touchdowns. But on the receiver side, I think we have to assume DeAndre Hopkins is going to take a little bit of a step back. You're not an offense that's gonna throw to you, directly quite as much. Yeah. But they will throw the ball more, so you might see more than your previous offense. So you might see him still be able to have a big season, and then I also think that a guy like Devontae Parker, he's going to fall back right now. He's going in like the 3rd round of some drafts, 4th round of some draft, and Kyle knows why.
Your boy Preston
Williams is coming back off of ACL surgery, and Preston Williams is the real deal. He's kind of the real deal. I personally like him. I personally like his game. But I'm assuming that if you look back at their years last year, Preston Williams worked his way into, as an undrafted rookie, being the number 1 guy, and it wasn't by a large margin, but they were basically splitting numbers down the road. And as soon as he got injured is when Devontae Parker really just took off. So I'm not even coming back and saying that Preston Williams is going to have this amazing season, but his mere presence is going to mean Fitzpatrick is not just going to feed Parker the ball every single time. They're going to be able to spread it out a little bit,
steal some touches.
Yeah, so I don't think it is likely that you're going to see a guy like that. If you see him in your drafts and he's going in the 3rd or 4th round, like, I would be very, very wary about doing that. That's a half a
season's worth of production.
Yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts on? And I know it's kind of crazy and far-fetched because he's the best receiver in the league. What are your thoughts on Michael Thomas?
No, he's not the best receiver in the league. That's where you're mistaken.
He's the best fantasy.
He has the most catches in the league.
Fantasy player in the league.
That's
fantasy receiver in the league.
Yeah.
Looking at the stats, that's one person. Probably where you're going with this is Emmanuel Sanders is coming to town, and he's going to steal some of those slot kind of underneath touches. 2, I think they're just going to run the ball more. When they're better when they just run the ball.
They always have been.
Yeah.
Always have been.
They just don't want to.
So I think that's a good point, Jamar. I think, and Kyle, I think that, with Emmanuel Sanders there, you're looking at, a guy who's going to get touches in a similar part of the field. Not so much that, like, Thomas is not still going to get his targets, but if Emmanuel Sanders is commanding slot targets, and you have Cook going down the seam, like, it only makes sense that you're going to see more Michael Thomas out wide, and if you're out wide, it makes it easier to double team you. I think he still sees his targets, but I think that's a pretty good point that you might see a less efficiency. You might see, he's never been a super high touchdown scorer. He's scored a little bit more, per year than Julio Jones, but I don't think he's even gotten to double digits once in his career yet. So that might continue to be the same trend. If you look at fewer catches and fewer yards, the only place you can really go from a historic best season in the NFL history as far as catches go is down. So I think that's a good one. Got a couple?
Yeah, Cortland Sutton in Denver.
That's a good one.
He performed really well at the beginning of the year before Drew Lock took over, and then had I looked it up, had like a 10-yard per game drop after Drew Lock took over.
That's big.
Yeah, he went from like a 63 yards per game average down to 52, which is a big deal. And now you got Drew Lock there the whole time, and I mean he's a big name in Denver. He's a top wide receiver for him, so could be easily overdrafted as just lack of production. And then before Kyle said it, I was going to bring up Alvin Kamara, but I mean he didn't exactly perform exceptionally well last year. Like he did really well. He was a great fantasy running back.
Hurt.
Yeah,
right.
But they got Sanders, they got Michael Thomas. They love to throw the ball. Could be an easily kind of overdrafted running back.
Yeah,
I could see that too. I think that he falls into a very peculiar kind of spot where he could be a value in your draft, or you might be, like you said, he might be overdrafted a little bit. I think it just is going to depend on what's going to happen with these training camps. Can they actually get in, get some time practicing? Is he going to be completely healthy? And if so, are they going to be able to do preseason? And what is he going to look like? If he looks really great and they utilize him a lot, then people are going to be like, oh, this is the Kamara of old. And I think that you might be right that what we saw last year might just be an unhealthy version of what is the norm. He was otherworldly as far as efficiency, as far as scoring like 17, 18 touchdowns and, all of the rushing and receiving yards and, receptions he was able to put up. What we saw last year might just be what we should expect from him. And if they're going to take that as like the number 12 guy overall or number 13 guy overall, then like that's fair. There's a little bit of upside there. But if you take him number 2 or 3 or 4, you might be a little bit more disappointed than that.
He's still a big name. He still has a dynamic quarterback. People still love having him on their team because of the potential upside, especially in a PPR league. You can, you're going to get a lot of points for the reception, out of the backfield. Could very easily see the justification of drafting him higher, but there's potential of him being performing the same as last year.
Yeah.